I could come here now with a pick, pan, shovel and just start mining, and you pick up, in theory, if this region hadn't been mined, you'd pick up a pretty good chunk of gold. Okay, everyone, so we're on the road to Barkerville. We're not going to Barkerville, that's 80 clicks down the road, but we'll go like halfway to Lightning Creek, the Wingdam mine. That's a really cool area. The drive's just kind of cool. I'm just curious to see, like, with the winter and how everything's been, and if how much snow's around here, because this is kind of heading more into the Caribou Mountains, and there's Cottonwood House. There's a couple cool things to check out. But I just wanted to check out Barkerville, like the road to Barkerville, because we were talking all about the Caribou and like getting to the Caribou. The road to Barkerville was like the last stretch, so this just gives you an idea of what people were having to deal with on their way, the way up here. This is a really weird time of year to do this, because this road would usually be full of tourists, everybody going to Barkerville to go check out gold, but this is the wagon road. Been following the wagon road trail since 100 Mile. This is the trail that they would have had to take their wagons to it. Once they got to Barkerville, they had to stake a claim and go through all of that, and hopefully, like I said, the claim made money. If it didn't make money, you were basically broke. And Billy Barker, who Barkerville's named after, he ended up dying a pauper because he blew all of his money. He wasn't a businessman. He was just a guy that made a ton of money off mining gold because he got lucky, and then he couldn't hang on to any of it, and he blew it all, and then he died a pauper, basically, completely poor with nothing. A lot of the guys that ran businesses, they ended up doing way better than the guys that just went up there to get rich off gold, because gold wasn't the only thing to be mined. It's the old mining the miners thing, as they say. We're going to Wingdam, which is on Lightning Creek. Lightning Creek is one of the famous placer gold creeks of the Caribou. They basically are mining underneath Lightning Creek right now, like underneath the gut of the creek, like right at the bottom, like 160 foot down, big shaft right down to the bottom, and they're mining that gold that's right under the overburden, which is 165 feet deep, which is pretty crazy. Like, they were finding pieces of gold at the top, but as the surface showings go away, you want to get down to like the source, and Lightning Creek is one of the hardest creeks to get down to the source of because it's just so deep. And so people have kind of wondered, like, where's it coming from? There's hard rock gold in wells, but the thing is that the gold in wells that's hard rock would not most likely have been the seed gold for this area. Due to the fact that it's so deep, that means that there's been multiple periods of glaciation that have pushed that gold down that deep. And same with Horsefly too, and likely, and how the Bullion Pit goes down so deep. The diggings in the Caribou go down very, very deep, and nobody's exactly quite sure why it is. Like, there's ideas. The Yukon actually has the same kind of mythology to it, if you want to call it that, because it's the same thing. Nobody knows exactly where it's coming from or where it is, but they have like a rough idea of it. Alrighty guys, so here we are, Wingdam, Lightning Creek. So they're mining underneath Lightning Creek right now. This is Lightning Creek, Caribou Wagon Road, Barkerville Highway. So that's Omanika Mining and Metals, but they're mining underneath the creek right now. Gravel shafts, the same way they used to do it back in the day, but obviously modernized with modern safety methods. But this is the Caribou Wagon Road. See the sunset. There's a little bit of snow on the ground. How little snow there is up here for this time of year. But it's like -1 right now, not really that cold. Underneath this creek, there's a huge run of gold that they believe has been buried by glaciation, because it's the only real way to explain it, because there's just so much overburden. And it's really, really rich. And the miners back in the old days were hand digging shafts down like 165 feet, wooden timbers for the shaft, like to shore the shaft, and like just buckets, shoveling buckets with a hoist, like, and that's where they got the Cornish wheel going to haul them up to the surface and run a sluice. And you know, they gradually improved the process, like, but it started with just guys chucking gravel into buckets and then hauling it up. But then they got the Cornish wheel to raise the buckets, and then they dump it in the sluice, and the Cornish wheel was getting powered by water that was also dumping into the sluice that would then sluice the gravel. So everything was working with itself. The movement of the water wheel also helped the sluice, which helped move the buckets up and down, which basically mechanized everything for the miners and made them not have to work as hard. Even though it was brutal, it was super dangerous. crazy dangerous work. This is Lightning Creek, a prospector that's a story, Bill Barley's story about how it was called Lightning Creek because he said this creek is real lightning, and he was famous for saying stuff like that. But this is the road to Barkerville. In the summertime, this would be crazy busy, tourists coming and going, but right now it's late November and sun sets early these days. Alrighty guys, so Quesnel Lake, the junction here, we're coming up on the Gibraltar copper mine. It's the second largest open pit copper mine in Canada. They're mining low-grade copper deposits. There's a few areas here where you can get low-grade copper. So the Caribou Wagon Road branched off in several different places because the Caribou Gold Rush is not just Barkerville, it's not just Horsefly, it's not just Likely, it's Keithley Creek, Quesnel Forks, Likely, Horsefly, Barkerville, Wells, Quesnel, like the town of Quesnel in the Quesnel River, because the Quesnel River has gold, and Quesnel Lake is the deepest fjord lake in the world. So Quesnel Lake is very deep. Quesnel Lake goes down like 1,800 feet. Quesnel Lake is also absolutely massive. I want to do a video one day boating out on Quesnel Lake, taking a boat out to Quesnel Lake, because you can go like 100 kilometers down the lake, right up into the Caribou Mountains. It's pretty fantastic. So we're going to head to Horsefly though. We're starting to come down near Williams Lake, 100 Mile House, 137, Cache Creek, 249. Okay, so here we are guys. Horsefly, one of the original destinations of the Caribou Gold Rush. So Horsefly, placer gold on the Horsefly River, and people were pulling placer gold out of the Horsefly River. There's also been a little bit of underground mining here, as well as water monitors, hydraulic monitoring. JB Hobson was up here too. So welcome to Horsefly. Since 1859. Now, it's argued whether Peter Dunleavy was the one that discovered gold here first, or another guy, H.O. Bow. Regardless, gold was discovered here in 1859 by several different people, and then the town site started showing up, and it was named Harper's Camp after Thaddeus Harper. Thaddeus Harper had a few gold claims. He was a rancher, and he's the gang ranch guy. He used to own the gang ranch. Gang ranch has now since changed hands, but it's a huge cattle ranch. But this was initially Harper's Camp, and then the locals voted to change the name to Horsefly after horseflies, which are very, very prevalent in the area. This is the highway, decent road. This would have been the original Caribou Wagon Road, and this would have taken you all the way to Horsefly. All right, guys, so here we are, downtown Horsefly. It's about -3. Patches of ice, some hotels. Quesnel Lake is nearby. Quesnel Lake's absolutely massive lake, so let's go look at Quesnel Lake, show you Quesnel Lake, Quesnel River watershed. So this is Quesnel over here. This is the Quesnel River, and this is all placer bearing gold all the way to basically Likely right here. This is Quesnel Lake, the north arm and kind of the east arm. You can see though, like, Quesnel Lake starts here and it goes all the way over up here. One of the biggest fjord lakes in the world, Quesnel Lake. The Quesnel River is a major tributary of the Fraser River, encompassing over 12,000 square kilometers. The Quesnel River system originates high in the rugged Caribou Mountains. The eastern portion of the watershed is part of the northern Columbia Mountains. Lower elevations are characterized by old-growth red cedar and hemlock forests, while higher levels are dominated by old-growth spruce, subalpine fir trees. The western portion of the watershed is covered by dry fir and pine forests. Cedar trees have been dated up to 1,500 years ago. So there's ancient rainforest around here too. This whole region has a very storied history of placer mining. Okay, so the Horsefly Museum, the Pioneer Museum, it's closed right now, but we'll do the outside walking. So this looks like an old bucket, tram bucket almost. Oh nice, they do have some of the water monitor stuff. So this is the remnants of the water monitor. This would have been an old nozzle. You can see it's all riveted together. So right down at the end here is the nozzle. So they would have had high pressure water shooting out of here, and they would have pointed it at a bank, and they would have used that to erode the bank. And then these here are the fittings. So the reducer, the elbow, the valves. You can see a knuckle joint. This right here, that's one of the knuckle joints. This would have been the handle. you needed a balancing box to move them, to keep them, because otherwise they'd swing all over the place. So they had a big balancing box on the one side. Then some old farm equipment as well. Plows. Oh, they got a boiler here and a winch. Nice old winch. And then the old steam boiler. Oh, power pack with a piston. Yeah, okay. And another winch with a spur gear. So yeah, this would have been a power pack. This would have provided power. So the boiler, just a bunch of miscellaneous things. The old Horsefly logo there too. Old cabin. You can see the excavators, lots of digging here, modern day placer digging. They'll just use excavators, and that's how they get all the mining done. So this would have been an old cabin. Looks like it's not in too bad shape. So this is just downtown Horsefly. That's nice. I was wondering what the state of the museum would be like. They should have a little bit more mining stuff here, but you know, it is what it is. But this is kind of the main thing we wanted to get out of this, was the old water monitors. That's nice that they have some left on it. And then the old fittings. And then that's the Pioneer Museum, but it's closed for the summer, or closed for the year. So this is kind of a map of the region. So Quesnel, this is where we went. Wingdam. Van Winkle, that was an old town that was teared up for gold. Wells, Barkerville, Bowron Lakes. This is the area I was talking about that would be good to find gold in. Caribou River Provincial Park, Keithley Creek, and then you've got likely Horsefly down here, right at the bottom. This bench is in the way. But this is the Caribou mining region. Okay, so we're just down by the Horsefly River. See if there's any signs. Always look for remnants around here too, of old mining operations or anything like that. Well, the river view's over here. I can't believe the river's not frozen yet. This is the Horsefly River though. It's moving fast. So they would have picked gold up all along the gravel. Like this gravel right here would have been perfect for panning. Obviously nowadays you're not just going to go around and pick up gold, but they were picking up nuggets out of here. It's a big placer mining show. So rocker boxes, sluices, gold pans, picks and shovels. Nowadays it's excavators and trommels. That's how they do it now. Just excavate all along. But it's not just along the river, all along like these little hills that you see and stuff. They're also digging all that out because there's gold under those deposits. There was gold on the surface, yes, but that wasn't really where it drove the Caribou. What drove the Caribou was the deep mining, the underground shafts. So it's like there's a little bit of hard rock in the area too. Like they've been trying to chase the load. So guys have been sinking adits and shafts into the side of the little hills. But among that, like I said, there's two types of shaft sinking. There's hard rock shaft sinking, which is just mountain, and you're sinking shafts and adits into the side of the rock. Then there's a softer version of it, which is gravel. So then you're sinking a shaft into like gravel like this. So you'd come up here. This is a bend in the river. This is a great place to look for gold. Be an awesome place to stick your pan in. This kind of material too. This is the kind of material that you want. I always like to look at the rocks too around and just see, oh, there's an old fish skeleton there. Yeah, guys, like I said, huge fishing, huge area for fishing. Lots of dead fish here. Fish carcasses here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. So big fishing. But right along here would be great for mining gold. But if they wanted to get underneath the river here, what they would do is they'd find a spot and then they'd just start digging through this. They'd shore the gravel up with wood as they dug down, and they dig down to a certain depth and they try and chase the lead, and they'd go as far as they needed to and no further. And once they found the lead in the ground, then it was a horizontal tunneling show. But you needed timbers and lots of wood, and you had to get the wood up and shore it, because otherwise you would have collapses. And so a lot of guys in the Caribou died from mining cave-ins and collapse because the groundwater would just rush into the mine, and even with the timber and the shoring, it wasn't enough, and it would just cause major problems for the miners and it just became too dangerous in a lot of mines. The deeper you went, the worse the water got, the more weight you had to deal with the soil, the harder it was to get timber down, and it was just really, really difficult. It was just very hard for them. Whereas this stuff's easy. This is the poor man's diggings. This is the stuff like I could come here now with a pick, pan, shovel and just start mining, and you'd pick up, in theory, if this region hadn't been mined, you'd pick up a pretty good chunk of gold. But this is the exact place you'd want to look. Like on the other side too, these bars, the inside bends of the river, that's a critical area to look for gold, as well as the banks on the other side too, the sandbars, anytime there's a gravel bar there. Yeah, this is the Horsefly River. This is where most of the gold was discovered. There's been hydraulic and underground mining operations done around here as well. Miocene had some activities too, but mainly the Horsefly River. This was the big one. This is where a lot of the mining took place. It was brutal in the Caribou because of how hard it was to extract due to how deep down it was. So the Caribou story comes a lot from how deep this gold was buried. Okay guys, so we're just at the side of the highway here, Caribou Wagon Road. You can see that's the Caribou Wagon Road. We're in the grasslands area. To the Goldfields. In the 1860s, the fabulous Caribou Goldfields were a lure to thousands. Miners, traders, and adventurers, many afoot, some with wheelbarrows, shared the pioneer route with the mule trains, plodding oxen, freight wagons, and swaying stagecoaches. Havens for man and beast were the roadhouses and stables every 12-14 miles along the way. And that's what I was saying about the mile houses. But every X amount of miles, they would have a stop. And that was where you would get your cattle water and food, and you'd stop for a beer and get some food. It wasn't just the humans that needed rest, it was the animals. So it was critical that you would have roadhouses every so far down, like they said, 12 to 14 miles, because that's usually when your horses needed hay and they needed water, and you'd offload freight or take on new freight. But it's crazy to think that all of these people walked like on foot all the way from Vancouver, in some cases through the Fraser Canyon up to here and further on. Horsefly, Likely, and Barkerville were the three main places of note. Horsefly was the first. Likely was kind of an offshoot of Horsefly. As Horsefly developed, Likely began to develop, and the hydraulicking operations, underground placer gravel shaft digging, very dangerous. A little bit of hard rock exploration as well, trying to find the lode source in those Caribou Mountains, because like I said, the Caribou Mountains are very mysterious and rugged, and I personally think there's a big gold rush waiting to happen there, and that gold will be found there up in the mountains at some point. But it's an access thing. There's no really big distribution points. Likely and Horsefly are small communities. They're not really big communities that can be distribution hubs. Quesnel, on the other hand, is. So who knows, maybe someday there'll be another big gold rush out in the Caribou Mountains. You've got towns like Wells, that is a hard rock gold mining town right around Barkerville. Van Winkle, Stanley, Cottonwood House, all of these places, these are all key parts of the Caribou gold history. But it was good to get to Horsefly and check out Horsefly and see kind of that side of the Caribou, because Horsefly is a little bit more on the obscure side, even though it was the first, 1859, Peter Dunleavy. Okay guys, here we are coming to the end of the Caribou Wagon Road southbound. So I've been talking about BX, Bernard's Express. This is what is now the Caribou Wagon Road, which is the highway, Highway 97. We've been taking it north up to Quesnel, and then we turned around, took it south. BX, the BX stagecoaches served the Caribou region for over 50 years, connecting Barkerville with the outside world. The terminus was moved from Yale to Ashcroft after the railroad construction destroyed the wagon road through the Fraser Canyon. The red and yellow coaches left Ashcroft at 4 a.m. and 4 days and 450 kilometers later reached the end of the road at Barkerville. So that road that we took to Wingdam, I was outside Wingdam there telling you about the mine, that was the road that BX would have had to travel. They would have had to travel all the way up. The highway we just came, turned at Quesnel, and then go up the Barkerville Road. And they did that in stagecoaches, and they did that all times of the year. It's nippy out too. It's about -2, -3, but we're high up on the plateau and it's windy. No snow yet, which is weird, but you can see the beautiful color of the rocks. Ashcroft became the base of the BX after the railway destroyed the Fraser Canyon, the sign was saying. So that makes a lot of sense. So we're going to go back through Ashcroft, and then there'll be a whole new video about the copper mining in the Highland Valley and up top on the Nicola Plateau, which should be very, very interesting. But anyways, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the video, leave a comment, and Sasquatch Prospector out.